Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Student of the Game. I am Kyle Nass, the Student of the Game. Listen, if you're here, chances are you like talking sport. We're glad you're doing it with us here right now. A little bit of an impromptu action with all the NFL schedule hullabaloo going on. That'll be right before the 9 o'clock Eastern hour for the Student of the Game. We're going to jump into that later. I'll be able to give my thoughts on what it is I like and what I don't care as much about for the NFL schedule, how lucky it is to schedule yourself to have a Wednesday night show sometimes, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, but with all the NBA action, I could not have this week's installment without talking some NBA. And, of course, Ernest Christian of Earnestly Speaking and fellow friend of the Huddle Up Inc. conglomerate, if you will. I got him here to talk about round two and where we're at, most of the series being at 2-2 as we speak. And listen, it's very funny because last year at the finals, folks, I had to give Bam Adebayo an apology because I thought he would get crushed by Nikola Jokic. And listen, I have been very public. Before the seeding started, and before we knew who was playing what team in the first round of the NBA playoffs, I had said on this show with Raphael Haynes, shouts to the three-point conversion, bing, that I believe the Minnesota Timberwolves were a threat to make the Western Conference Finals. Little did I know the seeding would be such that that wouldn't be possible necessarily because I had them and the Nets facing each other. Basically, what I was trying to tell you even then at that point, no disrespect, Celtics fans, but in my opinion, this series that I mentioned with the Timberwolves and the Nuggets are the NBA Finals. I believe whoever wins this series is going to take it all, and I'm calling this in round two because, you know, this is what you're supposed to do, I guess, in these spaces, making predictions. Good predictions, not ones like you would find in Tool Time. Shouts again to my guest today when he's on later and is Christian. But the punchline's this. When Raphael Haynes was on this show, and I was on his show, the 3-Point Conversion Sports Lounge, bing, I decided I was going to be funny. I decided to do a Shannon Sharp impression. We're talking about Nikola Jokic, and I said, Joker, Toker, Midnight Smoker, Wolves in 6. Well, see, here's the thing. My own saying got me overconfident. I said it throughout the Magic Cavs series in the first round that no series starts until somebody wins on the road, and right out the gate, Ann Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves got out the gate and started this series. I didn't know they were going to hand two of them back on the road, no less. This makes that series just completely different, and I apologize in advance. Listen, I wasn't one of these that participated in the trash talk upon Jamal Murray with the throwing of the heating pad. Listen, I saw in person at Game 6 how Paolo Banchero and Donovan Mitchell got hacked to pieces, and the refs were just staring at them. And I get it. They're being asked to call with lighter whistles, even though how much they've done that in the Mavericks series is a whole other question. Mavericks Thunder, they're going to call that ticky-tack, but then lose. I don't know. Anyways, punchline's this. I understood some of Jamal Murray's frustration. Should he be throwing heat packs? No. Should he have gotten more than $100,000 fine? Obviously. But I'm actually kind of glad they didn't suspend him. That's a whole other question. Anyways, punchline's this, guys. I apologize to Joker. In the same way I made the mistake in forgetting Bam Adebayo, or learning, I should say, that Bam Adebayo could be amazing, I forgot that you, sir, are too. I'm even somebody who, you are somebody who I want to have the ball in their hands ahead of, let's say, Luka Doncic, or, that. Man, listen, there's a reason why you're a 3-time MVP. And then Jamal Murray is healthier than he's been at points of this in the regular season. Of course, it's 2-2. You're defending world champions. I still believe whoever wins this series is going to win the NBA championship, barring injury, of course. But, yeah, that's my public apology to the Nuggets and Nikola Jokic. And now let's talk about the rest of the series with a man who I have been potting with for a long time. I've actually finally met him in person, and I'm even getting gifts for his wife and friends of the show for Mother's Day. It'll be belated. You'll get it soon enough, Lauren. Don't worry. But anyways, Ernest Christian, what's going on, my man?
All it took was, 12 years, some odd days, and some odd seconds
Well,
to get my hug?
it took you to stop slacking your entire butt off. That's what it boils.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was even more fun is that tonight we got for the first time together. Well, I gotta reflect on that, I guess, a little on the show when we do our follow content, what do you call it, on my pod tonight. So looking forward to that. But
yeah, I don't know if that's going to be a full-on thing, but it's one of those grab bags of stuff that EJ, Christian, Big Jim Neese, and I just talk about randomly. It could go from anywhere to politics to movies to whatever.
All conversation, brother.
Yeah, it could be talking about cereal. All we know is like breakfast cereal. All we know is that EJ's take is probably the one that's wrong. But anyways,
it is what it is.
man, listen, and I know I shouldn't lead with the Nuggets in the Timberwolves series because that should really anchor the show. But let's take this and go. How good have the playoffs in general been for the NBA? Like, there's really only one team whose series in each conference that I've really kind of said, meh, like the Pacers. I have not been watching any Pacers playoff series. And no disrespect to the Knicks nor the Bucks, but I kind of felt like the Bucks were going to blow that with the injuries. And I think the same thing's going to happen to the Knicks if you take Game 5 or Game 4 seriously. It's been a good playoffs, right?
No, it's been good. The injuries made it a little tougher to really enjoy it to its full extent. Obviously, not having Giannis in the Milwaukee Pacers series certainly, didn't help.
Well, you see, been hurt too. Like, it wasn't just Giannis. It was
Lillard got hurt. Lillard got hurt for a couple of games also to himself. He came back for Game 6. But by then they were down 3-1 already, and it's really behind the ball on that one. But not having Giannis, Boston is the one that's benefited the most because through 2 series now they've played a banked up Heat team without Jimmy Butler and without Terry Rozier and all that. Not saying Boston wouldn't have won that series without Jimmy, but certainly a little more resistance in that series. Probably, they're not going to cakewalk.
There's some other intangibles there. Like, I think the whole revenge for last year thing would have killed Miami.
Right. But the fact that Miami even got a game in that series without Jimmy and without Terry was actually a big deal. So
Bam Adebayo is a bad man, Ernest Christian.
That's right. And then you had this series now with Cleveland. It was 2-1 going to last night's game, and Donovan Mitchell doesn't play Game 4.
Yeah.
Not saying they don't win that game, but again, when your best person's not playing, I mean, what do you have there? So, and so Boston, go ahead.
You're there for a minute. I got to ask you this question.
Go ahead.
I think that says more about the Celtics to me than it does the Cavs. Because for all the stuff we're hearing about, Jason Tatum doesn't have that dog or all this, the way that team is questioned as just being a bunch of mercenaries who, by the way, Kristaps Porzingis, I believe, is still hurt. So, what he's going to be bringing back later in these playoffs is a whole other question. Like, this, Boston's going to survive because of the, quote, ease of the resistance.
And the thing is, it's not their fault. Look, you cannot control the circumstances that are around you. You can only play what's in front of you. And that's the bottom line. Look, we can sit there and say, oh, look, and you're right there. It is what it is. And look, they're going to end up playing either a banked up Knicks team right now in the conference finals or a Pacers team that I can't trust. That even though they have games like Game 4 where they blew up New York and whatever, but then they'll also lose games they shouldn't lose. And, it's one of those things where, like, Boston right now, finals are bust at this point for this team, and I don't see any resistance coming anywhere no matter what. So the
finals are bust. And I heard this argument made by Nick Wright, and as much as I listen to his show and I agree with or disagree with a lot of things he says at times, like, the punchline is, for me, it's not just finals or bust. If you go to the finals and then get beat by Ant Edwards and the T-Wolves, I don't think that would be acceptable to the.
No, I think the only acceptable loss that people will probably say, okay, I get it, is the Denver loss. But even then, honestly, at this point, given where Boston's been in the last 5, 6, 7 years, this is the team that this core of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum has gone to now what? But after tomorrow night, when they win Game 5, which I think they will win Game 5, they'll have gone to what? I think 6 conference finals. You know what I mean? At some point, you got to break through. They got the one NBA Finals a couple years ago, lost to Golden State. At some point, you got to break through.
Yeah.
That's
not lost on me. And all things being equal, I'm not saying that won't get talked about at all. Let's not get stupid here. But my instincts also tell me that because Denver would have gone back to back, they're going to be able to hide behind that a little bit. Does that make sense?
Denver gets a little bit of coverage, yes, some degree, but I think also with Boston, them winning 64 games this year too, also having far and away the best record in basketball this season, even in a let's face it, the East was decent this year. So not like it's like they went to an easy East, but they still won 64 games.
Bro, compared to the West, and maybe that's the problem, is the fact that we have.
I mean, compared to the West has always been a better conference for decades. Even this usurps the Jordan era. Even in Jordan era, the West is better.
Well, there were some shifts for a minute where it got evened out, like when Braun was on the East Coast, for example.
Right, but the West has always been the most favorite conference. It goes back to the 80s.
But the punchline is the distance is greater here, and that's why I think people may not buy
the distance. The distance now is shorter. The distance was actually larger during LeBron's early years in Cleveland and probably even part of Miami.
Right.
It's the gap is definitely shortened now, the parity in the league now in general.
Well, right, comparing those two eras, it's not exactly what I'm doing, but the distance between the two, you say it was a decent East. I can't join you there. That's what I'm saying.
It's what it is. I mean, what it is too. Also, the West is so good, and the tier talent there. When you have a West conference that has LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Nikola Jokic and all these guys you could name off, top 10 players are a good like 8 of them are probably in the Western Conference. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I get. And you have Edwards jumping on SGA. So yeah, I get it. I know
what you're saying. I'm saying it.
Yeah. So yeah, the West is still better than the East. That's the end of conversation at this point.
But yeah, right. But I bring that up to say, like, well, say what you will about the East being decent. Let's pretend I agree with you wholeheartedly. Hemi being injured is a thing.
Right. Giannis.
Not even Giannis, but you mentioned what their Donovan Mitchell is missing time, who is very good at basketball, I will certainly say.
Yes. You saw it yourself in the last series covering the one Magic.
I said it when he came to town for one of the Cavs games I covered. Let's call that what it is.
Is that for A7B Sports Bing?
That would be for A7B Sports.
Bing.
Correct. Yeah. Oh, well done.
This I know. I know you're working too long now. I can name drop your.
You plug that, sir. Don't you put that?
That's what I'm trying to say. That's how you know I'm working too long now. I can plug all your employers now. Bing.
Hey, listen, a lot of people can't even keep track of them, and I don't blame them for it. But
yeah.
Listen, but I getting back to it though, like you mentioned the winner bust thing. The pressure is entirely on Boston here. Is there another team that has more pressure on them than Boston? That's my question.
Well, there's no one close to Boston to the pressure. Go that way. If it's about teams left in the playoffs, I mean, I guess Denver has some pressure to some degree. I mean, you want to see if this run. I remember saying last year that Denver has an opportunity here to clip off a couple titles because their situation with the contracts and whatnot with their core four. They're lock, stock, and barrel for these 3 years. So if they can clip off a title or two, they have one in the bag already from last year, clip another one back to back, they're in a situation where they can create a little mini dynasty here, if things play out their way. So I would say Denver because Minnesota's a young team. They have more overachieved this year. The Thunder, even though they're down, a 2-2 series down that series right now, they've overachieved, as a team this year. I would say another team that has a low-key pressure, I guess, now, too, also is maybe Dallas does. Luka, been in the league now 6-7 years now. Time to start winning some games that matter. He's been in the conference finals once, but,
I think it's more on the player than it is the team because
I agree.
Dallas is a shock. And credit, the reason why people picking Luka as the MVP will not make me mad, even though I had Joker. You found a way to find harmony with Kyrie Irving, and
absolutely.
For a dude like Luka, who is alleged to be difficult to work with, to have that land it's getting completely underplayed.
Oh, it is, and Kyrie has been a very good citizen this year. He's been quiet. He's been put his head down playing basketball. Not necessarily having a great series here, really, in numbers wise, because he's been a little more of a facilitator, but at the same time, Kyrie has been, when he's been Kyrie, the talent player we all know and love, he's shown up. And I've always said Kyrie Irving, that number 2 role when it's defined, it reminds me a lot of him and LeBron in Cleveland. Him and Luka, same thing, same impact.
Well, and somebody figured out that Kyrie can't be the one, right?
No.
It took entirely too long for that to happen, but somebody
Right.
figured out that Kyrie can't
Right.
be the one. And then you could argue the Nets were structured to do that, but then he was having his, let's just say, press tour.
That was a weird situation too, because Kevin Durant is number one, but then Kevin Durant doesn't want to be the guy. He just wants to play ball, and he's not the leader, and he's that all the time. So it's one of those, it's a mixed match of things there.
Well, you say Durant was supposed to be. I could make the argument that Harden was that guy, right? Like it was a big three,
maybe, but Harden, he wasn't there long enough to really
spend time on the court. Like I know what the real world is. I'm talking about what the design would have been. You know what I'm saying?
Probably. I mean, but that was a match made in hell.
But I mean, listen, tomorrow night, you're expecting that series to end.
Which one?
Boston.
Yes. I mean, especially Mitchell's gonna be hurt too. On top of that, I mean, that's the easy one. That's the only series really that no one really. I mean, put it this way, I given a choice between watching that game or a hockey game last night, I watch hockey.
Well, after all, you are a big hockey fan, right?
Well, my Rangers now lost 2 in a row. I'm a little worried about them going forward, but yeah.
I don't know why that makes me laugh so much, but it makes me laugh a
lot. But I'm always the guy who chooses basketball over everything else. But it's like Celtics and Cavs. Nah, I'll put on the Rangers game because I only had one TV with me at the time, my phone with me at the time, so I was at work. So
well. Look at you falling into those first world problems.
Well, if I was home, I have my multiple TVs at home. I can watch both at the same time. But at work, I have one phone. You pick one.
I don't know. We'll leave that at that. Help me out. Here's the thing.
Okay.
In this portion of these playoffs, the series that's criminally underrated, and we touched on it, was Thunder Mavs, right?
Yeah.
I think. Because Luka is essentially in a state of limited performance, like the dude's barely able to move because his legs messed up, right? It's going to be that way into the offseason. This is what we're hearing, right? How weird is it that the Mavs have improved, air quotes, as a team because they've been forced to be less Luka-centric? Like, how much of that have you noticed, and what do you think of that?
You notice it, especially in this series, against OKC. Now, granted, it's 2-2 now, but Game 4 can go either way. And it's really not just Luka; it's Kyrie too. But Kyrie also hasn't shot well from the field in the series, consistently as is. But look, if you're going to win,
games too. By the way, you say that, and you're not wrong. But they won one of those games too. So
that's right. That's correct. I think it was game 2, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it's shocking. Was also necessary. Like every great team, a great player rather, that if they win, it's because they elevated the guys also around them as well too. And you're seeing PJ Washington having a phenomenal series. No one called that. He's averaging, I think, almost 20 a game this series, or close to it. And the other guys, other pieces, Lively, all those other guys are playing well. So you're seeing the effect of allowing, not being as central, still getting your points and when you need to get it, but you need to allow other players to chip in and do other things. Like all the time we give Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's great all the time. You get that. Michael Jordan also elevated guys too. Also, he elevated John Paxson's and the Craig Hodges and the Luke Longley's and all that. Those guys were elevated because of how great he was, and that's you can't win in basketball if you're not elevating guys.
They were afraid of the guy, but...
right? Well, that too. That too. But at the same time, you got to find a way to elevate those guys to rise their level of play while you're on the court, while still getting yours too at the same time. It's a challenge, but Luka's figuring it out.
How seriously can I take the Pacers? Because before you get going, let me say this.
Okay,
Brunson's awesome.
MVP candidate, in my opinion.
I would put him as an MVP ahead of Ant. Hashtag I said it.
Oh, that's not even a conversation.
You say that, but everybody trying to compare Ant Edwards to Michael Jordan. First of all, I think you jinxed him doing that, national media, and you owe him an apology, just the same way I owed Bam Adebayo an apology last year.
The media was wrong, and I'm sorry, but he was wrong, and you don't agree with this, because I also had to say comparisons. But what I said, and I was very clear about this on the podcast many times over, is that when I compare...
podcast.
That's correct. It's correct. Right on here on the bottom of my name here. is that I compare Ant Edwards in terms of style of play. I never brought up anything else beyond that. Just the style of play.
Well, and
Like how
that's
you
all
go.
what you're groping for is the whole style of play
That's
thing.
all
But
I compared it with.
I would make the argument that if that's your style of play in this era, you are doomed to be a Russell Westbrook. So that's not a good thing. In my
It's possible. It's possible. But I will say Anthony
opinion,
Edwards.
ball-centric in this league, right? What is the thing that stands out most about Nikola Jokic? I mean, the points are awesome, obviously, but Jamal Murray could go off and have points like that.
Yeah, of course.
So, I mean, rebounding's a factor. He's a big man. That's kind of natural.
He's
It's the damn assists.
Yeah,
That's
he's
the
a
same
complete
with
player.
Joel Embiid, right?
He's arguably as good a passer as a scorer, which is phenomenal.
Right. Yeah. The punchline is not ball centric. Name me a
No.
team that's living on a ball centric guy that's not Luka Doncic, right?
Right.
You know. So, anyways, but let me get back to Brunson. Like, here's where it's. First of all, I say this. Coach Thibodeau is my favorite. He's the most fun I had in a press conference, right?
Interesting.
Spo is still my favorite guy. It was awesome to do post game with him when he was here in town in Orlando, but he was just as boring as a guy that does what he does should be. You know, he's here to win basketball games. He doesn't give a darn about trying to be entertaining or have an opinion like let's say Popovich, right? But he did it without being, difficult as
a jerk, if you will, or right.
But as much as I like Tibbs, the reason why I lead that is his style is part of why the Knicks are stuck where they're at. Do you agree with that?
Well, his style is why any team he's coached in his entire career, Chicago, Minnesota, New York, is why he has a ceiling, because he likes to burn guys out, shorten the rotations, all that. And you're kind of seeing it now. Injuries going to pop up now with this next team now, late, and
Randall's been hurt since before the All-Star break.
Right, but but even now, the other utility parts around it.
Yeah, I say that to kind of accent you, so anybody else who's
Absolutely.
been hurt, Brunson included, and who the heck was it that had the foot? I can't say his name correctly.
Is it OG Anunoby?
Yeah, Anunoby, that's it.
He's been out for the last 2 games.
Anunoby, Obi-Wan Kenobi. All I know is
Yeah, and he may miss the rest of the series. We'll find out game 5 tonight if he plays or not. But
yeah,
but
so in a series where we wouldn't have been taking the Pacers seriously, and here's how the Pacers have won. Say what you will. We've talked about them being the prom date team, right? They know how to score and they won't stop anyone from doing it.
Correct.
If you're hurt, you can't stop anybody, which is why I could argue they're going to be scarier when they play Boston. And Kristaps Porzingis is still hurt.
Remember, I made a prediction on this podcast too. I picked them to beat Milwaukee, but it had more to do with Milwaukee, less to do with Indiana.
Well, right. I mean, listen, Ray Charles saw that one. I mean, you did predict it, but ain't nobody disagreeing with you. I mean,
right. Indiana's strange because height of powers, they are the most dangerous team in the Eastern Conference. They have a nice little big three there in Halliburton, Siakam, and Miles Turner.
Dangerous. I like the term dangerous because they're the easiest to underestimate. That's what
right. Exactly. And that's actually the perfect way to say it, because height of powers, they are capable of being anybody in any given day, but they also are a team that can play also below expectations as well too, very very simply. So
they have the widest range. Their ceiling may not be the highest, but it's high enough, and I think their floor is higher. Right, their floor is higher than a lot of other teams' floors.
Right.
Like you come out as I'm not going to say Denver, but like a team that's not super deep, and you're down a dude already, i.e. the Knicks. This is what happens.
Exactly.
So yeah, listen, I want the Knicks to go on. I like Brunson because and let me ask you this. I like the Knicks to do well now because next year expectations in New York are going to be absolutely stupid unreasonable. And Brunson will need to be very mentally careful with, or I should say, who if Tibbs is still coaching, which I assume he will.
I'm sure he will.
They're going to have to deal with managing that. You never know in the NBA. Guys who have won championships or made playoffs have been fired or got coach of the year, have been fired.
And Kyle, not for nothing, but this is now 2 years in a row the Knicks have gone to the second round of playoffs. So there's now an expectation now that they have to at least get to conference finals. If not this year, next year.
Well, right, and to your point, like I can very easily say, well, the Knicks winning was a shock, but that doesn't mean the expectations at this point aren't where they are. That's the issue with having a longer season is people done forgot the Knicks weren't supposed to do this like this, but they're doing it like
no. A lot of people like myself thought they would come back to earth a little bit, be a playoff team, but a little more one and done. The Miamis of the world, the top teams on the top of the conference would take their business. It'd be out. No.
But when it comes to the NBA, what's your catchphrase there, EJ Christian?
Shoot, hold on. Not go Heat, bitch, is it?
Yes, it's definitely go Heat, bitch.
Well, not right now. They look like crap. So and then banged up.
In these playoffs, it's no Heat, bitch. But the point I'm making,
right?
You're not a Knicks fan. You can have a reasonable expectation, right? I'm talking about with what that club would have to deal with.
Yeah. So. And I not looking at the numbers, that I know, but they'll have some cap room also. I think this summer's well.
Wait a minute, are you doing research? Hey, listen,
I haven't done it yet. I gotta check the numbers again, but I think they have cap room this summer to make something.
You even said the word numbers on this podcast. Hey, I have a suggestion for you. Maybe try doing that with some of your NFL analysis, so you don't look like a tool. How about that?
Be quiet.
No, but yeah, the salary cap's a great issue. I mean, or what do you even do with this Knicks team? Do you try to find depth?
Well, the biggest accomplishment they have right now in these last couple of years is that they've made themselves attractive again to potential suitors going forward. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Their players not wanting to go to New York because how bad it was there, because the owner is James Dolan's been pretty bad as well for years.
I.e. LeBron James, right? I know people.
I.e. LeBron James, i.e. Kevin Durant in 2019.
Correct.
He chose the Nets.
Good. Who does that? Oh, wait.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
Absolutely. That's a great point. It helps that they moved out of New Jersey. Anyways.
Yeah. It does.
Terrible.
Still Knicks town though. No matter what. No matter how good the Nets. No matter how bad the Knicks are, how good the Nets are, it's always Knicks town. That is clear.
Yeah, much to the chagrin of our good friend GWSTWLIOG Celio. Anyway,
he'll have to get over it.
But yeah, I think that's something they got to watch for is unreasonable expectations next year. And I would say something about getting depth in New York. But if you got Coach Tibbs, what the hell does depth matter? He's not going to play you anyway. So what do we do?
Exactly.
Frustrating,
man. Frustrating.
But, or hey, listen, maybe what Tibbs needs is a team as deep as Minnesota, and then maybe he'd rotate some. So I'm just going to go right into it with this, man. Like, I think this is the one series we haven't touched on yet, and I left it for last year on purpose, even though I teased with it. See what I did there? Hashtag talent, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with my statement that series is going to decide the NBA champion?
Minnesota and Denver?
Yeah.
Very likely. Definitely the winner of that series is going to the finals.
Notice
that was clear.
How he didn't straddle the fence, but he did give himself.
Because I feel like Boston can probably still beat Minnesota, but I don't know.
I don't think so. And let me tell you why. And then you could tell me if I'm nuts.
Yeah.
Because as the student and you and me working with NBA and me catching up and arguably surpassing you in some NBA episodes.
Allegedly.
There's a good drop.
Yeah.
Allegedly, right.
Yeah.
The reason why I don't buy the Celtics now is twofold. A, letting this Donovan Mitchell free Cavs team prevent the sweep raises a red flag for me. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, but already the narrative around them is, they don't have that dog, AB. They're a bunch of mercenaries. You beat Milwaukee in the personnel office. You didn't do it on the court. Not that I'm dissing it. That's a fine bit of GMing you did right there, getting Drew Holiday off that team.
Milwaukee made it easy though. So
and now thanks to that, they had Patty Bev to help them when they didn't have Giannis. Good luck with that. And then how many teams in the East are dealing with perennial injury issues? Don't get me started with the Sixers, where I'm looking smarter every day. We're back during the Warriors domination era. I suggested they trade Joel Embiid to lift themselves up because you're never going to get there with his injury issues. And damn it, I hate saying that because Joel Embiid is an awesome player to watch. And every time Philly comes to town here in Orlando, whether I'm there with A7BN Sports, bing, the 3-point conversion, bing, or your mama's sports media, whatever. That doesn't exist. That's why they don't get a bing.
Get a bing. Get a bing.
Yeah, there, EJ's going bing for his mama. Fine.
Yes, right. Happy Mother's Day, mama.
But there you go. But whoever it is, I'm going to go try to see him. However, the dude doesn't last. So I say all of that to say, who's challenged Boston really?
Miami.
And if I don't know how bad off Porzingis is, maybe he'll get better in the next series. That'll be the advantage to playing in the East and against the Pacers, I suppose. But if Porzingis is still an issue and he's battling either Rudy Gobert or Joker, it's a wrap.
Right. But I think he's game to game at this point. I think if the opponent was a lot tougher than Cleveland, I think Porzingis might have been in the series.
But let me be clear. You say he's game to game. You mean actually playing the humpy bumpy. I'm talking about back to 100%. Kind of like
right.
Is finishing these playoffs impeded?
No, but to your point though, like you asked if is this series between the Nuggets and the Wolves the NBA Finals winner wins this series. I'm leaning towards a yes. I have questions about Minnesota against Boston combination. I'm confident Denver will beat anybody, no matter who it is. But again, Minnesota, because Minnesota, this is against Minnesota, and what the Cat has done or has not done the last 2 games is very concerning.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the things I'm still worried about. You know, the inexperience now is someone's very ugly head again. So
and in the playoffs, that could turn on a dime, and I can look silly. Listen, I've had to apologize in each of these playoffs this year and last that I've been doing the Student of the Game podcast through. Anyways, but yeah, well, you mentioned in the proverbial final in question where the Wolves battled the Celtics. What concerns do you have for the Wolves in that matchup? It's not depth, it's not size. What do you got?
It's inexperience. It's and watching these last 2 games, Rudy Gobert, decision making is bad. Cat all of a sudden disengaged. He was engaged first 2 games in this series, not so much now. And just the youth. I trust Anthony Edwards. He shows up no matter what.
Right.
But Boston can say that we've done this for now 6-7 years with this core, gone to the finals, the deep run, the whole 9. So yeah, that will be the thing. And they are a more experienced team than Minnesota is right now at this point. And experience in the NBA does matter.
You're right.
Without question.
Let me take double down on the experience matters thing, and let me turn your own argument earlier in the show against you on your textbook. I just read this while watching ESPN response to experience. I'm not talking trash on you. I'm just saying everybody's going to experience.
Right.
Or maybe I am talking. You know what? I am talking trash on you. Whatever, EJ.
Wait, don't get shy now after 13 years. Stop.
Actually, no. I need to stop talking trash because then you'll drop an F-bomb and make me work harder.
I've been good. I've been good today. Maybe I'm sleepy, but yeah.
But hey, maybe that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Stay up an extra 12 hours ahead of the recording. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
But the experience thing, I think, works against Boston at this point.
Why?
Because you just listed that they are this pressure-filled group. When they're at the when they're at the finals and they're battling proverbially the defensive player of the year and Cad and Edwards and this group that is Minnesota, that is so, all we hear about is how much depth they have, which frankly, I think that narrative is what took the MVP out of Ant Edwards' hands, but separate conversation. The punchline's this. If all that's true, and you're this young team and you're playing with house money and you're riding the wave, and the lack of F's you give about the scenario, and you're in that space, I think Gobert isn't young per se like the other guys. He might be the one person that understands what's going on, air quotes. Whereas you're staring down this historical cloud, this funk. I think that's problematic.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that. But this is also why you brought in a Drew Holiday. This is why you brought in a Kristaps Porzingis to offset that, because that applies to the other 2 guys in Tatum and Brown.
Mm-hmm.
But you bring in the other 2 guys to beef that up. Now, to your point, though, so I'll agree with you. If Porzingis is compromised, all bets are off.
Okay.
And that even to a lesser degree may also include the Indiana series too. Also, if Indiana would get to the conference finals.
Well, when we touched on that, right? That's a great point.
Right.
If they're slowed, and anybody
Right.
else, God forbid, gets slowed. We already saw what they did to the Bucks, for example.
Right. Exactly.
So
right.
Quickly, great walkthrough of the NBA.
Absolutely.
WNBA starting this week.
Yes.
And already I'm hearing reports that the NBA is bleeping it up by putting Caitlin Clark behind a paywall. And I know all the gatekeepers going to be like, "Oh, you're late to this party. We've had this problem."
What do you mean by that exactly, behind a paywall? To explain.
You have to get the WNBA season pass to watch the Fever's first game, allegedly, right?
Oh, did they put it on TV?
Yeah, you hadn't heard about this yet. It sounds.
No, I not heard about that. No,
Organizer was openly.
I assumed that would have been the case.
You're not caught up on your boy Dan Lepetard if you haven't heard this whole thing.
No, because I thought the assumption would always been. I mean, first of all, comments has to tell you her first game as a WNBA player, put it on national TV. That makes obvious sense, though. That makes no sense at all.
Ernest Christian is what I'm telling you.
That's bad business.
Yes, it is. Next question. So, okay, I got your opinion on that. And we're going to have Megan Hall in next week to talk some WNBA and about how that experiment's going and how the first week's going and what she thinks is going on and how that's working. So please look forward to that. Megan Hall is absolutely amazing. The only downside to her covering WNBA is that she's not doing as much Colts content, and she was great at that. So, but hey, whatever. Megan Hall's coming in the building. Deal with it. I'm happy.
That's right.
But yeah, so I think let me end it on this. How crazy is it that we're living in the world where Colin Cowherd, Tony Kornheiser, and Dan Lepetard have all spoken about the WNBA season opener?
It tells you the impact of Caitlin Clark. It tells you the impact of she's having on this league. And if there's a chance for them to increase their salaries, increase revenue, increase anything across the board, this is the time to do it. This is the time to do it.
And not do stupid stuff like not put Caitlin Clark's opener.
Yeah. The reason why I'm shocked is that I always thought, even before she got drafted, like whoever, which, in your mind, you're thinking, okay, whoever team drafts her, obviously the WNBA is going to make sure that first game is going to be on national television. That's just common sense.
Well, and I get it. Like, you would do that for the preseason games. Like, I'm following Megan Hall's Twitter account as she's updating me on what Caitlin Clark's done because you couldn't get it on TV.
That makes no sense, though. Again, you find a way to make it work.
Somebody streamed that game from their cell phone, and the number of hits was astronomical on that stream. Yeah.
I don't get it, but maybe they're trying to get people to pay the paywall.
All I'm saying by even bringing this up with you is I'm marking here today on May 14th. I had to look because it's a Tuesday, not a Wednesday. On May 14th, as this season begins, that the chances for the NBA, because they're the ones that own the WNBA, the chances for the NBA to miss the opportunity, you're seeing it happen in real time. That's what I'm saying.
Get together, Adam Silver. Get together.
So, tell them where you can be found, Ernest Christian.
Well, when I'm out sleeping on 4 hours sleep, working 18.5 hours on my day job, and you can find me on Twitter /X at EJChristian7. Of course, my podcast, Earnestly Podcast, called All Podcast Catchers. Lots of content there we do every week, from sports, pop culture, you name it. If you like wrestling or like retro wrestling, especially, I have a wrestling podcast called The Wrestling Retrospective, which I do mostly weekly. We took a couple weeks off recently, though, because of our schedules and whatnot. We'll be back this week. We're actually covering 1989 and the Mega Powers storyline. I think tomorrow we're actually doing the official breakup of Mega Powers, Hogan and Savage. So that should be fun. Watch along that the whole event. But other than that, my YouTube page, especially guys, my YouTube page is my bread and butter. YouTube.com/Ernest Christian. You check out all my shows that are there on video. My YouTube shorts I do. Sometimes you get me walking, do my exercise, walking around the lake. I'll do a quick 1 minute video on whatever's on my head, that kind of thing, and comes to the shows, of course. So, Kyle, it's great meeting you last month. Great time. Gonna hope to see you again next month. And
recording filed for content with you tonight too. After
I was gonna get there tonight's filed content. You and Jim, first time in about almost a year, actually. Let's talk about that.
Well, we did some off-season stuff, but let's not digress too much.
Oh yeah, we're talking about this show. We're talking about this show.
You're talking about filed for content. Well, I think
right.
it's more than a year, but that's a whole other conversation. Anyways, I'm Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram and Threads as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with the 3-point conversion, the Jaguar Report, and the Black and Gold Banneret. You'll find me on the Night Shift podcast too with the Black and Gold Banneret. Bing to all of the above, of course. And of course, the Duval Dive every week, which I do with Big Cat Country's Travis D. Holmes. Apparently the D is a thing now. A lot of Travis Holmes. So this is how we distinguish as the D. That sounded dirty. Anyways, check that out. Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. This week, we've not really decided what we talked about, but make sure you check out last week's episode where we talk about if the Jags did enough to achieve make NTN great again. That's a whole other conversation there. That was a good time. And honor, joy, and privilege. We'll be on at our normal time tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern, to talk some NFL schedule. I'll jump on there for a bit. Won't be a full episode proper. It will be one you could combine with this podcast to get your weekly stuff in for both NBA and NFL this week. And honor, joy, and privilege. But until next time, everybody, class dismissed.